everyone, how are you? I'm Camila Rodriguez. I'm 32 years old, and welcome to my channel. For those who don't know me yet, I'm a businesswoman in the automotive industry here in Arizona, in the United States. But my story didn't start that way. In fact, until recently, I was known in my family as the problem child, the one who dropped out of school, the one who would never amount to anything in life. And do you know what's even more ironic? Last week, the same sister who laughed in my face when I said I was going to start my own business came to me asking for a job. But don't worry, I'll tell you the whole story, because it completely changed my perspective on family, forgiveness, and what success in life really means. Before we begin, please share in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where your own family doubted your dreams? Leave a heart if you've ever felt like the black sheep of the family, because I want to know that I'm not alone in this. The story I'm going to tell you today is about 12 years of my life, 12 years of ups and downs, of family relationships destroyed and rebuilt, of nights spent crying and days celebrating victories that no one believed I could achieve. It's a story about two sisters who grew up in the same house, with the same parents, but followed completely opposite paths. One chose the security of higher education and a traditional job. The other meets us the risk of entrepreneurship without a college degree. And, spoiler alert, in the end, it wasn't the person with the degree who did best in life. But the emotional price I paid to get where I am was almost not worth it. Almost if you stay with me until the end of this video. You'll understand how I turned $3,000 into a seven-figure empire. Why sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need our compassion the most. And how I managed to forgive 8 years of family humiliation. Hit that subscribe button, because this story is going to be long, it's going to be intense, and I guarantee it will make you rethink a lot about your own family relationships. I'll start at the very beginning. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, into a typical lower-middle-class Mexican-American family. My father, Roberto Rodriguez, worked for 35 years as a mechanic in a downtown garage. He woke up every day at 5 a.m. and came home at 7 p.m. His hands always stained with oil and his uniform dirty. My mother, Carmen, worked as a nursing assistant on the night shift at Phoenix General Hospital. She left the house when my sister and I were having dinner and came home when we were leaving for school. Weekends were sacred. They were the only time we had to be together. They bought our house a small 3-bedroom house on the west side of Phoenix after 10 years of literally saving every penny. I remember my mother counting and recounting the bills on the kitchen table, separating the money for rent, food, and bills. We never lacked anything essential but luxury. Luxury was pizza on Saturday night when my father got some extra work. My sister Jessica is 2 years younger than me, but since she was little, she has always been treated as the hope of the family. And look, I'm not going to be unfair to her. She really was always smarter than me in school. While I struggled to get CS in math and science, Jessica came home with report cards full of ass without even trying very hard. When I brought home a good grade, a B+, for example, my parents would say, "Well done, kid, we're proud of you." But when Jessica came home with an A, it was literally a party. My mom would bake that 3-milk cake she loved. My dad would call the grandparents to tell them, I understood, in a way. Jessica really was exceptionally smart. At 14, she was already reading philosophy books for fun. At 16, she was taking advanced calculus courses. It was obvious she was going to go far. But what hurt me wasn't that she was smart. What hurt me was the constant comparison. Why can't you be more like your sister? Jessica never gives me any trouble at school. If you tried as hard as Jessica, ... What my parents didn't understand was that I had my own form of intelligence. Since I was little, I loved understanding how things worked. While Jessica read books, I took apart old radios to see what was inside. At 12, I already knew how to change a flat tire. At 15, I could diagnose most of the problems with the family car just by the noise it made. My father noticed this on weekends. When he did extra work in the garage at home, he would call me to help. Camila, pass me that wrench. Camila, hold this part for me. It was our special moment. He taught me not only the technical side, but also the human side of the business. Look, honey, this customer always comes at the end of the month because that's when he gets paid. We give him a small discount because he's a hard worker like us. This lady here is a widow. She doesn't have much money. We only charge her for the parts, not the labor. Through him, I learned that mechanics wasn't just about engines and tools. It was about relationships, about trust, about helping people keep their lives running smoothly. The problem started in my senior year of high school. Jessica was in 10th grade and had already been accepted into 3 advanced student programs. She had a partial scholarship to Arizona State University, and all her teachers said she could go to any university in the country if she wanted to. I, on the other hand, was doing extra work just to graduate. It wasn't that I was stupid, but my mind just didn't work the way the educational system expected it to. I understood practical concepts easily, but memorizing math formulas to pass tests, it was torture. That was when the comments started. Camila, you need to focus more on your studies. Look how hard your sister works. Without college, you won't achieve anything in life. And Jessica, even though she was younger, started to buy into this narrative. She didn't do it out of malice, at least not consciously. But she started treating me as if I were ... inferior. As if she were the responsible sister and I were the problematic one. I remember one specific occasion that left a deep impression on me. It was December 2010, Christmas Eve. We were all at my grandparents' house, and my Uncle Carlos asked us about our plans for the future. Jessica, very articulate, explained her college options. Her aspirations to work for a large company, maybe get an MBA later. Everyone was impressed. When it was my turn, I said I was thinking of working with my father, maybe expanding his business. The silence was awkward. Even my grandmother, who always supported me, made a face that said, "Oh dear, ... Jessica was the first to break the silence. Camila, you can't waste your life like that. You have the potential for so much more than being a mechanic, so much more." As if my father's work, which had supported our family our entire lives, wasn't enough, 3 months after that awkward Christmas, I was at a crossroads. I had been accepted into a community college to study business administration, nothing that excited me. But it would be enough to get a degree as my family wanted. Or I could take the $3,000 I had saved working part-time at McDonald's throughout high school and use it as a down payment on a small auto repair shop that was for sale in downtown Phoenix. It was a tiny repair shop, Bodegas Alto Payer, that belonged to Mr. Ramirez, a friend of my father's who was retiring. It was 200 square feet with space for 2 cars, a small waiting room with 3 plastic chairs, and a soda machine that worked when it wanted to. But you have no idea how I felt when I walked into that place for the first time. It was like coming home. The smell of oil, the noise of tools, the flickering fluorescent light. It was perfect. Mr. Ramirez wanted $15,000 for the shop and the equipment, $3,000 down, and the rest in installments. My dad agreed to help me with the technical side of the business and be my guarantor at the bank. The night before I had to give Mr. Ramirez my answer, I decided to tell my family about my decision. We were all having dinner, a rarity, because my mother was usually working at that time. "Dad, Mom, I've decided not to go to college." Jessica's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. My mother almost choked on her water. "What do you mean, sweetie?" my dad asked, trying to stay calm. "I'm going to buy Mr. Ramirez's workshop. I've already talked to him. I've seen the numbers. I've talked to the bank, ... double quotes. Jessica exploded. "Camila, you can't be serious." "I'm very serious." "Mom, tell her she's being ridiculous." Jessica turned to her mother, who was clearly panicking. My mother tried to be diplomatic. "Honey, maybe you should think it over. It's a big decision, ... double quotes, I already have. I've been thinking about it for 2 years. This is what I want to do." Jessica stood up from the table, clearly furious. "Camila, you're going to throw your life away. You're 18 years old. You know nothing about running a business. You have no experience, no capital, ... "I know more about cars than half the mechanics in town," I replied. "Knowing how to change an oil is not the same as knowing how to run a company. Do you think it's just a matter of showing up and that's it? There are taxes, employees, suppliers, 1,000 things you can't even imagine. And how do you know? You've never worked a day in your life." That made her even angrier. I never worked because I was studying, because I was preparing for a future. Not like you, who wants to settle for the first easy thing that came along. Easy, I stood up too. Do you think entrepreneurship is easy? Everything is easy for you, Camila. You always choose the easy way out. Math is hard, so you give up. Science is hard, so you give up. Now college is hard, so you give up. That hurt. It hurt a lot. "I'm not giving up, Jessica. I'm choosing a different path." "You're choosing to be a failure," she shouted. "And when you realize you can't handle it, it'll be too late to turn back." Dinner ended with my mother crying, my father trying to calm everyone down, and Jessica and I staring at each other with a rage that had never existed between us before. In April 2011, I signed the papers and officially became the owner of a repair shop. Phoenix Auto Care. I changed the name because I wanted something of my own. You know? The first few months were exactly as Jessica had predicted, and that hurt me more than I would admit. Some days I would go hours without a single customer. Other days, problems would arise that I didn't know how to solve, and I had to humbly call my father for help. Jessica, meanwhile, was living her first year of college. Every time she came home, she brought incredible stories, brilliant professors, super smart classmates, internship opportunities at big companies. And she would ask me, always with a tone that mixed genuine curiosity with a hint of, I told you so. So, Camila, how's business? It's going, I would reply, trying to sound confident. How many customers did you have this week? A few. How many is a few? It was torture. Because the truth was that I was struggling to pay the basic bills for the workshop. There were months when I literally ate instant noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because that was all my budget allowed. In October 2011, something happened that almost made me give up everything and agree with Jessica. A customer brought in a 2008 BMW 328i with a problem with the air conditioning. In Phoenix, broken air conditioning is an emergency. It's 45 degrees in the summer. It seemed like a simple problem, a leak in the system. I located the leak, replaced the part, recharged the gas, tested it. It worked perfectly. The customer was happy, paid $300, and left. 2 hours later, he came back furious. Not only had the air conditioning stopped working again, but now the car wouldn't even start. I had tampered with something in the electrical system without realizing it and caused a short circuit. The repair would cost $2,100, money I didn't have. The customer threatened to sue me, said he was going to spread the word all over Phoenix that my shop was a ripoff, demanded that I pay for a rental car for him. That night, I sat on the floor of the shop and cried for 2 hours. For the first time since I had started, I thought, what if Jessica is right? What if I'm really not cut out for this? Desperate, I did something I swore I would never do. I called Jessica to ask her for a loan. Jess, I know you're busy with college, but I'm going through a rough patch here and ... What's wrong, Camila? She sounded genuinely concerned for a second. I made a mistake at work. A big mistake. And now I need to borrow $2,000 to fix it. The silence on the other end was long. Very long. Camila, she finally said, and I already knew from her tone that it wasn't going to be good. You want me to lend you $2,000? I'll pay you back. With interest, if you want. I just need to fix the situation. ... How are you going to pay me back, Camila? You barely have enough money to support yourself. I'll figure it out. I always figure it out. Look, I can't help you. First, because I don't have that kind of money. I'm a student. Remember. Second, because maybe this is the lesson you needed to learn. What lesson? That entrepreneurship is no joke. That running a business isn't just about doing what you love. It comes with responsibility. It comes with consequences. ... Double quotes. Jessica, please ... Double quotes. Camila, I warned you. I warned you this would happen. Everyone warned you, but you didn't want to listen. She hung up the phone. I stood there, holding the phone, feeling like my world had fallen apart. Not just because of the $2,000 I didn't have, but because of my own sister's coldness. In desperation, I did something completely outside my comfort zone. I created an ad on Craigslist, tired of being ripped off by mechanics, learned basic car maintenance from a female mechanic who gets it. The idea was simple. Offer basic mechanics classes for women. Change oil, check tires, understand when a mechanic is trying to rip you off. Know the difference between a normal noise and a worrying noise. I charged $50 for a 2-hour class on Saturday morning. I didn't expect anything, it was just desperation. In 2 days, I had 15 responses. Women of all ages, all with the same story. I feel intimidated when I go to the repair shop. I always feel like they're trying to rip me off. I wanted to understand at least the basics. On the first Saturday, 12 women showed up at my workshop. From a 19-year-old college student to a 65-year-old woman who had just been widowed. They all wanted the same thing, knowledge and confidence. It was magical, not only because I made $600 in one Saturday, more than I made in a good week, but because I realized something that no traditional workshop was offering. An environment where women felt comfortable asking silly questions. Word spreads fast when you do something well. Within a month, I was doing 3 workshops per Saturday. Within 2 months, I started doing them on Sundays as well. More important than the extra money was realizing that these women started bringing their cars to my shop. They trusted me because I had taught them to understand the basics. It wasn't just about fixing cars, it was about building relationships based on transparency and education. Jessica came home for Christmas 2011, full of stories from college. When she asked about my business, for the first time, I had good news to share. What do you mean you're teaching classes? She asked, genuinely curious. Basic mechanics, workshops for women, every weekend, and it's working. It's working really well. Last month, I made $4,000 just from the workshops, not counting the cars they brought in afterwards. I saw an expression on her face that I had never seen before. Genuine surprise. Not sarcasm, not disbelief. Surprise. Wow, she said. That's really smart. It was the first professional compliment I had ever received from her. During 2012, while Jessica was focused on her studies, I was revolutionizing my approach to the business. I transformed the workshops into something bigger, the Women's Automotive Empowerment Program. It wasn't just basic mechanics, it was about self-confidence, about not being afraid to negotiate, about understanding your rights as a consumer. I started bringing in guest speakers, lawyers specializing in consumer law, self-defense instructors, financial advisors. The business exploded. I started renting rooms in community centers because my workshop couldn't fit everyone anymore. The price went up to $75 per workshop, and there was always a waiting list. More importantly, these women became my most loyal customer base. Not only did they bring their cars, but they also referred their husbands, children, friends. My workshop was always full. In March 2012, exactly 1 year after opening, I was making $8,000 a month. It wasn't a fortune, but it was more than many graduates earned in their first job. And for the first time in years, I felt that Jessica began to see me not as the problematic sister, but as someone who really knew what she was doing. Jessica graduated from high school in May 2012, with top honors and a nearly full scholarship to Arizona State University. The whole family went to the graduation, including me, even though our relationship was still a little tense. During the celebratory dinner at Olive Garden, a big celebration for our family, my Uncle Carlos asked me how my business was going. When I told him about the workshops and the numbers I was making, he almost spit out his wine. Holy shit, Camila, sorry, Carmen, you're making more than me, and I have an engineering degree. Jessica was quiet throughout the conversation, but I could tell she was paying attention to every detail. Later, in the restaurant parking lot, she approached me. So, it looks like it's really working out. It's working out, I replied, trying not to sound too proud. I still think you should consider taking at least a few business administration courses, she said. But congratulations on what you've built. It was small, but it was the first real recognition I had received from her. Between 2013 and 2015, I made 2 major expansions. First, I opened my second location in a more upscale area of Phoenix. Second, I started a YouTube channel called Camila's Car Care. The channel started small, filmed the workshops, and posted basic maintenance tips. But there was something about my approach that resonated with people. I didn't speak like an unreachable expert. I spoke like a friend explaining something to another friend. Jessica, who was in her second year of college studying business administration, started giving me tips on digital marketing. Camila, you should be on Instagram too. Have you thought about partnering with automotive product brands? It was strange, but good. For the first time in our lives, we were collaborating instead of competing. In 2015, I made the best decision of my career. Tesla was starting to become popular, and I realized that the future would be electric cars. I took out a $50,000 loan and completely specialized in electric and hybrid vehicle maintenance. It was a risky bet, but Phoenix is the perfect city for electric cars. Lots of sun for solar panels, lots of heat that requires ultra-efficient air conditioning. In 6 months, I became one of the few electric car specialists in Arizona. Between 2016 and 2018, my business literally exploded. I opened 5 locations across Arizona, all specializing in electric and hybrid vehicles. I trained and hired 32 employees, yes. I made a point of hiring mainly women. My YouTube channel reached 2.1 million subscribers. I was partnering with Tesla, BMW, Toyota. Big brands wanted my approval for their hybrid vehicles. In 2018, Tesla officially invited me to be a partner in Arizona. Forbes put me on the 30 Under 30 list in the automotive category. CNN did a story on my women's empowerment program in the automotive sector. I was earning over $1 million a year. Jessica graduated in 2016 and got a job at a consulting firm in San Francisco. Starting salary of $68,000 a year. Excellent for a recent graduate, but ironic considering I was earning that much a month. During this period, our relationship became cordial but distant. She posted on Instagram about her corporate life in SF Modern Apartment, expensive restaurants, trips with coworkers. I posted about my business and my workshops. We saw each other at Christmas and Thanksgiving, chatting politely about work and life, but there was an unspoken tension. It was as if we were both waiting for some kind of recognition from the other that never came. In June 2019, the company where Jessica worked underwent massive restructuring. Tech startups were revolutionizing the consulting industry, and traditional companies were laying off employees en masse to cut costs. Jessica was laid off along with 45% of the staff. San Francisco is one of the most expensive cities in the United States, and even with unemployment insurance, she quickly began to experience financial difficulties. The job market was super competitive. Hundreds of experienced consultants were competing for the same positions. Jessica sent out more than 200 resumes in 6 months. She had a few interviews, made it to a few finals, but always ended up losing to someone with more experience or willing to accept a lower salary. Her savings ran out. She had to move from a one-bedroom apartment to a studio. Then she had to find a roommate to share the bills. Eventually, she had to sell her car and use public transportation. During this period, I received some strange messages from her. Nothing direct about her difficulties, but messages that were different from the norm. How are you? I miss the family. We should talk more. It was my mother who told me the truth during one of our weekly phone calls. Your sister is going through some problems in San Francisco. Honey, she doesn't want to worry anyone, but I know she's suffering. In September 2024, our family organized a big reunion in Phoenix to celebrate my parents' 30th wedding anniversary. The entire extended family was coming, uncles, cousins, grandparents. It was the first time in 5 years that everyone would be together. Jessica came from San Francisco. It was the first time I had seen her in person in 2 years. And the change was shocking. She was visibly thinner, with that look of someone carrying a heavy emotional burden. Her hair didn't have its usual shine, and she wore simpler clothes than I was used to seeing her in. During Sunday lunch at my parents' house, our cousins kept asking about my business. I had just opened my first location in California, in San Diego, and was planning to expand to Los Angeles. Man, Camila, you're such an inspiration. My cousin David said, building all of this from scratch without even stepping foot in a university. It's incredible. Jessica stayed quiet throughout the entire conversation. She smiled politely when someone included her, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. It wasn't jealousy, it was something more complex. It felt like she was reevaluating her life choices. After lunch, I was in the kitchen helping my mom with the dishes when Jessica appeared in the doorway. She stood there for a few seconds, clearly nervous, fidgeting with the bracelet she was wearing. CAMILA ... Can I talk to you? We went out to the backyard where we used to play when we were kids. The same orange tree where we built a treehouse when I was 12 was still there. The old swing my dad had put up was still hanging. A bit rusty, but still working. Jessica sat on the swing, and I leaned against the tree. For a few minutes, we stayed quiet, listening to the laughter of the family inside. Do you remember when we used to dream about growing up to be best friend sisters? Jessica finally said, looking at the ground. I remember, I answered softly. We screwed that up, didn't we? She laughed, but it was a sad laugh. We made things complicated, I agreed. Jessica took a deep breath before continuing. Camila, I know we haven't really talked much these past few years, and I know that ... I know I wasn't the best sister to you when you were starting out on your journey. I stayed quiet, waiting for her to go on. The truth is, I've been going through some stuff back in San Francisco. Serious stuff. She paused, clearly struggling with her pride. I lost my job a few months ago. Actually, almost a year ago. And I've been having a really hard time finding something new. My heart sank. No matter our history, she was still my sister. Jess, let me finish, please. She raised her hand. I burned through my savings. I've had to move 3 times into smaller and cheaper places. Last month, I literally didn't have money to buy food during the last week. Tears started rolling down her face. And the worst part is, ... I deserve this. I deserve to be going through all of this because I spent years being a jerk to you. Because I spent years thinking I was better than you just because I had a degree. Jessica stood up from the swing and turned to face me directly. Camila, I saw that you opened a location in San Diego, and I know you might be planning to expand into other cities in California ... She paused, swallowed hard, and continued. Would you happen to need someone to help with the administrative side? Strategic planning, financial analysis, operations. I have 5 years of experience in consulting. I know how to do projections. I understand team management. The silence between us was long, too long. All the memories came back like a movie, her laughing at my dreams, calling me an irresponsible dreamer, telling me I'd end up a failure. But I also remembered when we were kids, how she used to defend me from the boys at school who made fun of my accent, how she would share the last slice of cake with me, even when it was her favorite, how she comforted me when our cousin died in a car accident. Jessica, I said softly, Are you asking me for a job? She nodded, tears now running freely down her face. I know I don't deserve it, Camila. I know I was awful to you. I know I hurt you in ways you might never fully forgive. Then why do you think I should hire you? The question was harsh, but I needed to know. Jessica took a deep breath. Because over the last 5 years, I've learned things about business that could help you grow faster and more sustainably. Because I know how to identify market opportunities, optimize operations, create scalable systems. She paused and looked me in the eyes. But most of all, because I've realized that you've always known who you are. You've always had the courage to follow your own path, even when everyone, especially me, doubted you. And I spent years trying to tear you down because I was afraid I wasn't as brave as you. Afraid to take risks. Afraid to leave my comfort zone. Afraid to fail. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. You know what my biggest realization has been these past few months? No degree prepares you for real life when things get hard. But courage does. And you've always had courage. I looked at my sister, the same person who once laughed at my dreams, now standing vulnerable in front of me. Not just asking for a job, but asking for a chance to rebuild our relationship. For a moment, the hurt part of me wanted to say no. I wanted to say, remember when I asked you to lend me $2,000 and you told me I needed to learn a lesson? But then I remembered something my grandmother used to say, Mia, forgiveness isn't about whether someone deserves it. It's about choosing not to carry anger in your heart. All right, I said. Let's talk about it. But there are a few conditions. Her eyes lit up. Anything. First, we start slow. You'll work part-time for 3 months to prove you've really changed. Second, no San Francisco consulting salary. You'll earn what a regular employee earns while learning the ropes. Third, if at any point you treat me like the dumb sister who didn't go to college, you're out. She laughed on, the sarcastic laugh from before, but one of genuine relief and gratitude. And fourth, I added, we're doing family therapy together, because I want this to work. But we need help processing everything that's happened between us. I agreed to all of it, she said, hugging me tight. Thank you, Camila. Thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve. Everyone deserves a second chance, Jess, even you. And so, after 8 years of a broken relationship, my sister and I started a new chapter. She started working with me last October, and I won't lie, we're still learning to trust each other again. But for the first time in years, I feel like we have a real shot at being true sisters. Not competitors, not rivals, but partners, building something together. The lesson I learned through this whole journey, sometimes the people who doubt us the most are the ones who need to see our strength, not to make them feel bad, but to show them there are different paths to success. And forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to build something new over what was broken. If you made it this far, and wow, thank you for staying with me for over an hour. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? What was that process like? And if you're going through something similar right now, whether it's doubting your dreams or dealing with family conflict, remember, you don't need anyone's approval to validate your dreams, not even your family's. You just need the courage to start and the persistence to keep going. Subscribe to the channel, hit that like button if this story touched you in any way, and share it with someone you think needs to hear this. I'll see you in the next video, and thank you so much for being part of this journey with me. See you soon, everyone.